what we want to talk about actually with this first story, because we often see headlines that proclaim America is experiencing a retirement crisis. Andrew Biggs with the American Enterprise Institute, he disagrees. He tells the Broadcast Retirement Network the polls show quite the opposite.
If you ask them that question, they will say yes. And yet the data tell a very, very different story. And I think the disconnect is that Americans fear there's a retirement crisis for other people. But if you actually ask retirees today to describe their financial security, maybe about 5% would describe their own financial situation as a retirement crisis.
Now, when you meet with new clients, do you find that some rely on headlines to guide their retirement decisions? If they came in with doubts about their own retirement readiness, their prospects, were you guys able to turn those attitudes around?
I wouldn't say, I don't necessarily agree with bad retirement attitudes, but what I do agree with is that there's a lot of pre-retirement anxiety. And what I mean by that is people, they want to know that they're going to have enough money to enjoy the type of retirement that they deserve or what they want, and they want to do the things that they want to do. So here at America's Retirement Headquarters, we kind of work with each person to create a situation where we give them a non-judgmental number of what it is they have and really put the ball in their court as far as them deciding whether they feel they're fit for retirement. And usually most people that work with us, they come to the realization that they do have the wherewithal to retire. Yes, there are different things that will change throughout the retirement life cycle, and we just kind of navigate them through it. So it's not really a changing an attitude. It's just giving people the confidence that they're doing the right thing. And I think when we use the independent income system and we take a look at all the different tests that we can put a portfolio through, we help people make really good informed decisions.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think what I find most is most people want to know if they're doing enough or see where they're at. Mm-hmm. Kind of that keeping up with the Joneses sort of thing. They might see the neighbor or maybe have a friend that they talk to. It's kind of a difficult conversation to have for some people at some point. I mean, I've always done financial planning, and I think it's the perfect way to go. We have our retirement team action plan, which basically gives bullet-pointed details. Because I think most people, if they knew what they had to do, they would probably do it. So I think that's where we come into play, is letting folks know, like, putting a plan together and letting them know what they need to do to get to their ultimate retirement goal. It's kind of like there's plenty of ways to get to Florida. You could walk, you could ride a bike, you can get in a car, you can get in a plane. So I think we kind of map that out as far as how to get there. And most people are going to take a plane and not walk to Florida, I would think.
And, everyone's going to be starting from a different location. And so, how they get there, those first steps, it's going to change from person to person. There may occasionally be detours along the way. So having that plan to guide you and keep you on track if you veer off track, how to get back to it. Jeremy, you mentioned the keeping up with the Joneses mentality, and I don't know, what is your stance on that? Because, your neighbor's retirement is not going to be the same as your retirement. So just because they're doing X, Y, or Z, do you find it difficult to convince people that, they should be looking at their own personal circumstances instead of, what their friends and coworkers and things are doing?
Yeah, every individual is a little bit different. Retirement's going to look different for everybody. You could look at different plans, different ways to save. People have different budgets. People have different goals and objectives. Some people want to travel. Some people want to do some other things. So it is definitely individual, and that's what we encourage people to do, an individual retirement team action plan.
I remember once when I had my first meeting with a client who had met with at that time it was their current advisor, and the current advisor told them that they absolutely could not afford to retire. And I found that very interesting, because under whose parameters could they not retire? And it sounds like it was more the advisor's parameters that, when we sat down and actually did the plan for the client, it became quite evident that they did have the wherewithal to retire. And, I feel like that's one of the big advantages that our team brings to client service here is that we do it in a no judgment type, I call it a no judgment zone. We're going to take the input that you have and we're going to take your goals and objectives and we're going to create the retirement team action plan with those things at the forefront. And once the top factors have been laid out, we can prioritize the plan to make sure that all of the main bases are going to get hit.
Again, at the end of the day, what's ultimately most important is making sure you have the plan suited for you. Just by listening to the show, just by watching, this segment online or wherever you're consuming it, you're showing you're taking your retirement planning seriously. The next step is, of course, figuring out how it all works for you. That is where the Retirement Guys formula, that is where the Retirement Team Action Plan comes into play. And so to get started with that, figure out your own personal circumstances, your own parameters, developing your own plan, give a call, 419-794-3030. Once again, that's 419-794-3030, or you can find them online, set up a time there as well at arhq.com.